Oh, hey, I didn't see you come in there. Don't you ever knock? How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer coming at you with another video. Now, we're getting a bit of snow here today. Getting into that time of year. Jesus Christ. Time to hunker down and play some video games, right? So, today's video, I don't want it to be a long, drawn-out video, but as some of you may have noticed, if you follow me on Twitter, I did post a image on my community tab on YouTube as well. Last night, I had the fortunate opportunity to complete God of War 3 for the PS3. So I have a few things I want to talk about with regards to this. I didn't know how I was going to approach this review. I wouldn't even say this video is going to be a review, because if I were to do a review, this video would be like a half hour long, and I really don't want it to be that long. I think I'll just sort of give my off-the-cuff thoughts on the game and compare it to God of War 2018, which I had the luxury of playing for the first time a couple of weeks ago, on my PS4, and sort of wrap things up from there. So, a couple of years ago, probably about a year ago, I picked up a PS4, and around that time I walked into a thrift store, and I actually found God of War 3 for the PS3, and I had heard nothing but good things about this. One of the best games on the PS3, highly rated. It got very good scores when it came out, etc., etc., etc. A couple of years ago, I played God of War on the PlayStation 2, and I had never played this series before, and I had a blast with the original God of War. I thought it was amazing. Didn't take too long to beat. And I picked up God of War 2, and I didn't get too far, and I walked away from it. I probably shouldn't have. I walked away from it. I had other games on the go. There's some out there that would say this is the best God of War game, at least with regards to the original trilogy of games, not including the PSP releases. So that's up in the air. I haven't played this yet. I need to. I have played it. I haven't finished it. But we're here today to talk about God of War 3. So, again, a couple of weeks ago, I played through and finished God of War 4. God of War 2018. You could call it God of War 4. And I put up a little bit of a review of this on my channel. You can check it out as well if you'd like. And my thoughts in a nutshell, Santa Monica Studio created this magnum opus, if you will, open world, semi-open world adventure starring Kratos and his son. And while the open world was beautiful to look at, and yes, the throwing of your axe mechanic was a nice addition to the series, I thought this was a long, drawn-out affair, and I couldn't wait for it to end. And once I saw the final credits, I wasn't all too eager to jump in and take on the additional quests and side quests that you could do in this game. I walked away from it. I don't think I'm going to go back to it. So, shortly after I finished this, because we're going in a weird sort of not a chronological, but we're going from God of War 1 to God of War 2018 back to God of War 3. I said, you know what? I'm going to jump back into God of War and play God of War 3. So I did that. And, shout outs to Alpha Nerd Entertainment. He had recommended this as well. He's like, listen, I played God of War 2018, and it's not as good as God of War 3 on the PS3. So I jumped in, and I played through it. It took about a week and a half. You could probably beat this in a couple of days, but I took my time with it. And yeah, God of War 3 is absolutely amazing. I did prefer it over God of War 2018 for a number of reasons. I do like the old school God of War games that kind of almost have, I can't believe I'm using this as a comparison, but to sort of like the older Resident Evil games. Not in terms of tank controls, because it doesn't really have tank controls, but in terms of the fixed camera positions and the way that the backgrounds are almost kind of like a pre-rendered background like you would have had on the old school Resident Evil games. And what I mean by that, as an example in God of War 3, there's a scene where you have to go up a spiral staircase, right? And you start running up the staircase. And then the camera switches positions to being like right above the staircase looking down. So when you're playing the game, you just see Kratos and you have to sort of run up the spiral staircase. And it almost looks like something out of like a Stanley Kubrick film, the way they have it shot. So, as far as camera angles are concerned and fixed camera positions and pre-render backgrounds are concerned, I really do appreciate that aspect of the old school God of War games. There's also an argument that could be had that the cutscenes in this game are heads and shoulders above the cutscenes in the more modern God of War games. No, the cutscenes aren't baked into the live action gameplay sequences. It cuts to an actual cutscene. But in this game here, you're presented with a beautiful selection of black and orange cutscenes that are very animated in style, but are absolutely breathtaking and beautiful. And I really appreciated the cutscenes in this game. I watched them all. I didn't try to skip through them. I really thought it was an excellent design choice, aesthetically speaking, in God of War 3. As far as gameplay is concerned, it is kind of like a button mashing affair, if you will. It doesn't require too much skill. There are a lot of different combos and moves that you can learn. This depends on how invested you want to get in that. The combos and the moves are very easy to pick up and play and get used to. Versus God of War 2018, I thought it was just too much. I thought it was way too much, the leveling up system. Whereas in this, it's very more rudimentary, if you will. And even when you go into the menu where you level up, you have half the screen has Kratos' bloody face, and very, very rudimentary. And when you level up one of your traits, you see the blood sort of fill up, and it gives you this awesome sound effect. Very old school, if you will. So, I can understand why Team Santa Monica would have tried to reinvent the wheel with this game, because you can pick up and play this game not having played God of War 3, and the story, as far as I'm concerned, correct me if I'm wrong, the storylines don't sort of intertwine, because once you see the ending of God of War 3, it's open to interpretation, right? And then you see this, it's like it's disjointed. So there's obviously some sort of plot or storyline in between of God of War 3 and this that hasn't fully been explained yet. That being said, this is absolutely a PG-13 mainstream title for the PlayStation 4. When Team Santa Monica released this, they were obviously gunning for a new sort of audience, a younger audience that probably didn't play the older titles, right? Because not only can you pick up and play this game and not have to really be invested in the previous storylines, this is PG-13 because you know why? This has scenes of sex and extreme violence, okay? You can smash some of your enemies' brains in this game. Blood all over the screen, rip their eyeballs out, rip their head off. Lots of blood for being something that's, not real life per se. We're dealing with characters that are mythological. Is that the word? It's very gory. It's really gory. It almost makes you wonder if something like this would fly in the year 2022. So it's just funny playing this and then going into this. The level of violence is turned up to 11 in this. And the other thing too is the pacing is really good in this game. Chapter to chapter to chapter, it's not too drawn out. Whereas in God of War 2018, there's a lot of slow, monotonous, mundane periods of being in your boat and puzzle solving and all the rest of it. There's puzzle solving in this, but it's just right, And so I wanted to sort of mention some of the cool things in the game. I'm going to look at my phone as I look at the chapters here. So you got chapter 1. Right off the get-go, you're dealing with the Leviathan and a boss, Poseidon, which is very iconic for anyone who's played God of War 3. And then in chapter 2, you've got the Forge, the Palace of Hades. When you get into the Palace of Hades, that is a really cool chapter. Some really cool puzzles, absolutely. And then you get into chapter 3 where you're dealing with the caverns. Oh my god. Chapter 4, you're dealing with Hercules, the boss. Chapter 5, Poseidon's Chamber, the Upper Gardens. So chapter 5, when you're dealing with the Upper Gardens, there's a puzzle in there, and it's like an optical illusion, and it involves moving and maneuvering water fountains. And I thought it was really, 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 really good. I really enjoyed that. That was chapter 7. My apologies. Chapter 7, you're in Hera's Garden. That's it. Anyone who's played it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Hera's Garden. There's a hedge maze, and I thought it was really, really good. And then chapter 8, you're in the labyrinth. Chapter 8 was fucking annoying, I'm not going to lie. Chapter 8, it involves dealing with the screen. The screen moves. It moves around kind of like a cube, and you jump on walls, and then the whole screen moves, and there's an annoying section with spikes and enemies, and anyone who's played God of War 3, you probably know what I'm talking about. And then chapter 9, you fight Zeus, the boss Zeus. And it looks incredible. It almost looks like a modern Mortal Kombat game. The way you're fighting Zeus on this narrow plane. And I thought it was awesome. The boss battles in this game are very unique. Heads and shoulders above the boss battles in this game. There was even a boss encounter. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Kronos. And he's huge. The scale of this boss is huge. And you jump on him and you have to climb around him, trying to be careful not to fall off. And I'm not going to say too much more about it. But all to say, it was just absolutely incredible. You know, as far as the graphics are concerned, I would give it a 10 out of 10. I would. I know they're not PS4 or PS5 level graphics, but to me they are. When I'm looking at it, aesthetically speaking, I, in a lot of ways, appreciate the graphics in this over the graphics in this. As far as gameplay is concerned, it is, like I said, more of a old school hack and slash style of game. Whereas in this, they try to modernize it to appeal to the new generation, if you will. So that's why there's a lot of old school fans that would say the first 3 installments are the best of the God of War franchise. And that's why I like to compare these franchises to Resident Evil. Because when Resident Evil 4 came out, everyone said, oh, that's the best one in the series. That's where everything just like went up to the new standard. And then you've got the other part of the fan base that's like, no, the old school Resident Evil games, the tank controls and the pre-rendered backgrounds were the best Resident Evils, and Resident Evil 4 is when things went downhill. Same goes with God of War. That's my opinion on it. But I played it on easy, and I had some difficulty with it, but it wasn't too bad. The other thing I want to mention too is God of War 3. You can buy it remastered. It came out a number of years ago, shortly after the PS4 came out, and you can pick it up for next to nothing. It's cheap as chips, and you can run it in, I think, checkered board resolution, 4K, and you can also stream it on your PS4. You can live stream it, and it has some enhancements to the lighting and some other graphical enhancements as well. So while I'm not a huge fan of picking up remastered versions of games, and I picked this up for $5 at the thrift store, there's nothing wrong with the PS3 version. I think God of War 3 would be a case to pick up the remastered version, because I think this would be a lot of fun to live stream on my channel. So I'm thinking about it. But yeah, so gameplay, I'll give it a 9 out of 10, because I know it is sort of a archaic style of gameplay. You're not going to see, maybe you will, but you're not going to see God of War return to this style of gameplay anytime soon. Again, it's gone into the mainstream. The next thing we're going to see is probably a God of War movie, right? And it's funny. I hate keep going back to this game, but it kind of reminds me of like James Cameron's movie Titanic that came out in 1997. Won all the awards, Academy Award for Best Picture, and all the rest of it. And years later, it got Titanic got a reappraisal, and many people, I've said it all along, would suggest that Titanic is an extremely bloated and overrated film, and it's not very good, right? It's not very good. Same goes for this. I think years from now, when we look back on the God of War franchise, a lot of gamers are going to be like, no, God of War and God of War Ragnarok, they just don't cut the mustard. And they're going to be looking at the older titles, right? Let's be honest here. So, yeah, fun factor is absolutely a 10 out of 10. I never got bored. I always felt like I was on the move. Every new section I walked into, my eyes lit up like a little kid in a candy store. I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, just different variations of the areas. And, you know, you're in the caves one moment, and then you're in a lot of crazy quick time events, cutscenes. There's sections where you're flying through the air and rocks are coming at you. And just the way it looks when you're playing the game. Imagine you're sitting in front of, I'm sitting in front of a TV right now. Kratos is going forward. He's flying, kind of like Superman, and all the rocks are flying at him. It's awesome. And there's also a lot of gameplay mechanics that are sorely missed in God of War 2018. Like, you just quickly forget how important it is to be able to jump. Okay, they took that gameplay mechanic away in the modern God of War games. And not only that, you've got wings in this game. You can fly. It's an excellent gameplay mechanic. You've got all kinds of awesome moves you can do. You got these big hands. I can't remember what it's called. Like these huge rock fists, and you can break apart ice and fire. It's really good. You've got obviously the chains of Olympus. And then you've got these claws. They almost look like lobster claws as well. And then you've got the head of Hades, I think it's called. And it's like a lantern, and you can walk around and you can shine it at the wall, and you can uncover chests and secret areas as well, and light up a dark tunnel as well. I thought it was fantastic. The voice acting was heads and shoulders above God of War 2018. I think Kratos looks a hell of a lot better in God of War 3, aesthetically speaking. I think he looks a hell of a lot better. And yeah, it's a fantastic experience. I might even put God of War 3 in there as in my list, my short list of top 10 video games of all time. I thought it was fantastic. I would have no problems going back and running that through again. Just the perfect length for a game. You know, about 10 hours I think it took me to beat. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I didn't really have to be emotionally invested in the story to play it, but I felt like I kind of understood what was going on. Versus in God of War 2018, I was not invested in it at all. So while all you guys out there are getting excited for God of War Ragnarok, I'm kind of more excited to go back and play God of War 2 on the PlayStation 2. And I also have the Origins collection that I need to tackle as well. So yeah, there's no shortage of God of War games for me to play. But as an old school gamer, I will tell you, if you play these back to back, if you actually think this is better than this, you need to get your head examined. Honest to God. So yeah, definitely a 10 out of 10 experience, maybe a 9 out of 10, because there were some, it could just be me, maybe I just wasn't doing it right, but I find there were some control issues with regards to double jump. So what I mean by double jump is in the game, again, like I said, you get these wings, right? These bat wings, and you jump and then you jump again and then you can fly. A lot of times I would do the double jump where I tap the jump button twice, and Kratos would only jump once, and then he would just fall into a pit and I would die. So that kind of pissed me off. I noticed there were some audio issues with this game, which is funny because I had some audio issues with this game as well. I don't know if maybe it's my TV, but I've played other PlayStation 3 games. I think the best example would be the original Uncharted, and I had the same issues as well, where sometimes it happened during cutscenes where when the characters would talk, for whatever reason, their voices would be really low and you couldn't hear what they were saying. There was even a few cutscenes where their voices cut out completely, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. So I don't know. Maybe I've got one of my speakers blown on my TV. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into it. But yeah, it was fucking awesome. I can't recommend it enough, especially since I paid $5 for it. But I'd seriously, I'd be excited to get this for the PS4 remastered and be able to live stream it. I think it would be a lot of fun. So for any of you guys out there, because I know a lot of you guys are younger, you know, you may have played this and you may not have played this. And you might be wondering what's all the fuss about. No, go play this. Go pick it up for your PS4. You could probably pick it up at Walmart for $15. And you won't be disappointed whatsoever. So yeah, God of War 3, fantastic game. Can't recommend it enough. And I'm not quite sure what game I will play next. I still haven't taken the Series X out of the box yet because I have my hands full. I've got so many other games on the go. I was playing Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Color the other night, and I have to say, I don't want to get into it here, but I have to say that's an incredible achievement for Rare to have been able to port that game to the Game Boy Color. Everything that was in the Super NES version is there, and I think there's even an extra level as well. I think the Game Boy Color version is better than the Super NES version of Donkey Kong Country, if you can wrap your head around that. So I'll try to put out a video on that if I can finish the game. I'm in the final level and I'm having some difficulty. It's much harder than the SNES version. We'll save that for another day. So I just wanted to talk about God of War 3. I wish I could go into more detail about the game itself, but without crib notes in front of me and all the rest of it, it's very hard for me to sort of go back and give a proper recap. Hey, Alpha Nerd, if you're watching this, maybe you can put out your own video on this and talk about it. I'm sure you could probably talk about it better than I could. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Right at the 22-minute mark. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.